Change Your POV podcast is about building confidence in your own beliefs, morals, and opinions while challenging yourself to be open, humble, and curious about things that you are unfamiliar with, don't have experience in, or straight up disagree with.
We will explore concepts and ideas that will challenge you physically, mentally, and spiritually. Personal introspection is among the greatest skill sets you will learn to hone. The foundation of your success is rooted in trust, gratitude, and forgiveness.
So join us as we explore things that we are unfamiliar with, strengthen things that we are, and are always challenging ourselves to become better.
Change Your POV podcast, where perspective is the vantage point of success.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages.
Welcome to the Change Your POV podcast, where perspective is the vantage point of success.
It is way too early for both of us to be this excited on a Sunday morning.
No, Sunday morning. Well, I've been up for like 3 hours, so.
So have I. Got up.
I guess we could have recorded this at like 5 if we had,
Yeah, but I got up early, and that's when I did all of the, the pre-show, what's it called?
Digging, research?
Yeah, research. I was going to say investigation, but that's not right.
No.
Research, yes. We got an action-packed show for you today, ladies and gentlemen.
Action-packed.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Well, we can't even say enjoy your commute, really, anymore. It's just wherever you are. Right?
Wherever you are. And I do want to put forth to everyone a Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Because this will be airing the day, well, it's not Christmas Eve, so the day before Christmas Eve. But
right.
Either way, the 23rd. And this is, I guess, what our Christmas show would be. So Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Should we sing a little jingle?
No, we should.
No, we should not.
Because no one ever wants to hear that.
So I was on my way to my son. My wife and I were on our way to our son's place last night because we had a little dinner over there at his apartment.
How far does he live away now?
About 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
So not the worst.
No, it's a little further. It's probably about an hour and 10 minutes.
But maybe a nice, for the weekend, right? A nice weekend evening jaunt over to have dinner.
Yeah, so we went over there. He made dinner. Him and his girlfriend made dinner. We watched the Broncos lose horribly.
Horribly.
Yes, and they opened up gifts from us. We opened up gifts from them. It was a good time, and we were on our way back. And we were on our way down there, and I started to kind of hum a little Christmas tune, and my wife turned to me and says, "Don't."
Can you just stop? Please?
Stop right now. Well, what it was, that app that Reface app I have that I've been putting my face on all kinds of stupid little video clips.
Everyone?
Yes. Well, there was like a little Christmas one that just is absolutely ridiculous, and it sings this little song, and I started like humming that, and she's like, no.
Stop.
Not happening.
Right now.
Yeah. So, and her and I are in agreement. We do not do Christmas very well, but we're okay with it. It's the rest of the world that may not be okay with it.
Right. To each
Christmas.
Their own, right?
That's right.
That's why we live in a free society in America.
Amen. Welcome to episode 226. Really quick, before we get into our topic, I just want to share with the listeners again really quick our website, Buy Us a Coffee, and the new platform that we're going to be launching our shows on, Anchor. So do you want to kind of bring us up to speed with those three outlets?
Yeah, so, the Buy Us a Coffee, actually, we've had some coffee bought.
Yeah, which I'm drinking right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that, everyone. And the website, which it's super simple, and it obviously needs more tightening up, but it's changeyourpov.com. Again, changeyourpov.com. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a little store that's up.
Oh, on the website?
Yeah, and you can buy T-shirts or hats that are way overpriced right now, and I apologize for that, but that's just because of the vendor that I was able to get like online super fast. We have to pay for the shipping. So it says free shipping, but I'm passing that along to you folks, obviously, because that's just how the business works. But that's why the prices are so high, is because the shipping is included.
Got it.
So let me give you guys a little hint that whenever a vendor says free shipping, it's built into the price.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
And with the way that they can get shipping down is by volume.
Right.
Or places like Amazon or other bigger vendors, they actually negotiate with the Postal Service for lower prices. Right.
Yeah.
So obviously if Amazon's sending literally billions of packages through the U.S. Postal Service, right? It's not always the U.S. Postal Service, but a lot of times it is, right? I'd say 95% of the time they use the post office.
Sure.
You're talking billions of packages, and if they're only getting charged like $1.99 a package.
Well, not only that, but they're going to throw on worst case scenario shipping charges too, right?
Correct. So if you buy a sweatshirt, believe it or not, it takes a lot to package a sweatshirt. Right. And, I mean, think about it in comparison to like a T-shirt, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I'm not offering sweatshirts right now, because I need to find a vendor that can offer the sweatshirt reasonably, because otherwise you're literally going to have a $55, $60 sweatshirt, which a lot of people won't even blink at paying that. But I know that I don't love that idea. So
I'm up on the site right now. I never noticed this. Must be a new feature. So at the top it says home and then shop. I clicked on shop and there's a couple of items up, and I'm assuming on the distressed dad hat that the strapping young man is not included.
No, that's me. It's my avatar.
That's your avatar. You got a very good looking avatar, sir.
I'm just kidding. But anyway, yes. It does not come with that
That's
strapping
me.
young lad included.
It's not included. Yeah, you only get the hat when you order that.
Right.
Got it. We are into chapter 5 of About Face, and this chapter is called By the Direction of the President. This gets into his battlefield commission from sergeant to, what did they call it? Balloon lieutenant?
Something like that, yeah.
That's what the term that they use for second lieutenant, balloon lieutenant.
Which I never heard of until this.
Me neither. So there must be some reason. I wonder if it has anything to do with, the balloons that they used in World War II, to kind of to oversee, or not oversee, but kind of like forward, like observation balloons or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
I don't know, but that.
I mean, we're used to the term butter bar lieutenants, right?
Yeah, right. And they used that back then too, so I don't know.
Not sure. So
could it be community? Yeah. So I wonder if it's like community driven, where a balloon lieutenant, like the observation balloons you're talking about. I wonder if they're like, oh, he's just a lieutenant, put him up there. Or, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Right? Like cannon fodder, like a private, but different.
Exactly. That's kind of.
We're probably talking out our ass completely. We have no idea.
No. So if you're listening and you happen to know what the origin of balloon lieutenant is,
please educate us.
Let us know.
Because we are morons about that. I guess, you know what? And I never even thought to look at it until you just brought that up.
Yeah, well, another term that he uses quite often for the first sergeant is top kick.
Well, top, of course.
Right, we use top, but I never heard it top kick.
We dropped a kick, right.
Yeah,
I never heard top kick either, you're right.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's an origin for that as well, which I'm unaware of. But hey, that's the beauty of well, that's the thing, right? So not to get off on a tangent here, but so on Veterans Day, I wore to work my Stetson, my Cav hat, and my and my
Why
Spurs,
wouldn't you?
and my Spurs, right? And for Memorial Day, I go into work and I set up the missing man table, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do this because it's amazing to me how uneducated a lot of people are in military tradition and things, right? And it's a way for me to not only, share the story of myself, but really more than that, it's an opportunity to share the deep, rich history of the military and all of its branches. And every branch has its own thing, like the Marine Corps and its birthday, and even the Marine Corps uniform. You could probably have an entire episode to talk about what all of that means, right?
And everything has a significance almost.
Yeah, everything has a meaning, and there's backstories to everything that we do in the military, and it's just it's fascinating to me. I mean, there's so much I don't still even know. It's very much a culture within a culture, and it's almost a hidden away culture, and unless you have somebody to kind of explain it to you, a lot of outsiders will never actually get to know what any of that means. So it's just my way of kind of sharing that military culture with folks that otherwise would have no idea what any of that means. So it was interesting.
You and your goddamn hat.
Well, I was in my office. This is kind of a funny story. I was in my office, and I had my hat on, and I had a sports coat on, and on the lapel of the sports coat, I had my miniature medals, which you're encouraged to wear as a veteran during
Times like Veterans
Day, right? So I was totally within regulation, make sure that I'm following the rules, and I've got all my bling bling on, and it really isn't so much a hey, look at me. It's a way to say give me an opportunity to share a story, right, with people. And I'm in my office working, and all of a sudden, one of the things that my company did is they had a red veteran polo with it said veteran on the sleeve and U.S. flag, and a coin, a veteran's coin, kind of like a challenge coin that they had made for each veteran within the company. And I work in the corporate office, so the president of the company actually made his way downstairs to my office to hand me my polo shirt and the coin personally. And he came into my office, and I saw him. I stood up immediately, and he just stood there and just kind of looked at me and just had this puzzled look on his face. You could tell that the wheels were turning in his head. And he's looking at my hat, and
it's like, do I make this comment or not?
Yeah, and he was just he was completely just taken back. He had no idea how to even react. And he kind of regained his composure and was like, well, happy Veterans Day, and just wanted to give you this token of appreciation and thank you for your service. And it was really cool. But it was funny how
super funny.
Yeah, it was funny how completely off guarded he was when he came into my office, because it wasn't what he expected, I don't think. Right.
Well, who would?
Right. Yeah.
It's like a 5'10" guy with a fucking suit,
well, what?
like a sports coat on and a cowboy hat, basically.
Right. Well, one person looked at me and says, "Oh, I really like your pilgrim hat."
Oh man! Because all right, so folks, folks that don't know,
pilgrim hat.
It's not a actual traditional. Well, it probably is a traditional cowboy hat, but it's a Cav hat.
It is a Stetson.
Yes. You could keep calling it that, but people are.
It's
like if you go back to the cavalry obviously regains its roots from horse cavalry.
Correct.
And if you go back and watch any Civil War movie, that era, you will see this cavalry Stetson.
Correct.
And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's the difference between, it looks like a black cowboy hat, but the difference between a cowboy hat and a Stetson.
But it does have a different shape.
It does have a slightly different shape, and the big difference between a Stetson and a cowboy hat is the Stetson actually has the chin strap the leather chin strap that comes down. You wear it behind your head, but nonetheless, it's a chin strap. But that's really what makes the difference between a Stetson and a black cowboy hat. But you're right; it does have a very distinct shape to it, and you've got the cord that goes around it, and there's different colors of cord, and there's different. And like I said, everything has different meanings. So the different colors for the different branches, and then you've got cords for enlisted, cords for officers, cords for warrant officers, and then you got your unit insignia, and there's just a whole lot to it, right? And then you get into the spurs, and you've got regular spurs, and then you've got combat spurs, and the direction that you wear the spurs means things. And there's just, there's a lot of hidden meanings behind
As if there's
a lot
enough
of it.
shit.
Right? Yes. Yeah. But it's cool.
Oh, you cavalry guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very, and the thing about it is, as a veteran, I have the opportunity I think literally the only time I wear my Stetson is on Veterans Day.
Yeah, because when else would you wear it?
Right. I wouldn't wear it for Memorial Day because that's a different holiday. And it's not about me as a veteran.
Could be the Army birthday, but you guys don't really care.
Well, so it's like for like reunions and things like that.
Yeah,
for
of course.
Ceremonial type things, you'd wear it. But I don't live anywhere near a military base. I don't have an opportunity to do like reunions or any kind of ceremonies. So really Veterans Day, and really only Veterans Day if I'm going to work, because I'm not going to wear it at home. Walk around at home on Veterans Day with my Stetson on. No, I have worn it out in the store once, though. I forgot I had it on, and everyone was looking at me like I had 3 eyeballs. And but I had a lot of veterans come up and say, "Hey, man, really dig your hat," which is really cool. Anyway,
because no one in New Hampshire wears a freaking Stetson.
No, no, nope.
All right, so number 5.
Yes, number 5.
By the direction of the president.
Amen.
Hack lived every day as if he were on top of a big, big wave. He was very excited about his military career and wanted to prove his worth as a leader. The only problem he ever caused me, and it wasn't really a problem, was that any time I issued an operations order, Hack always wanted his platoon to lead the attack. Of course.
Try hard. Go get her.
Some discretion had to be given to the fact that he was not only volunteering his own life and safety, but the lives and safety of 42 other soldiers in his command. But Hack's demonstrated example rubbed off on members of his platoon, so they all wanted to fight and be like him. It was a delightful experience having such an effective fighting machine. Lieutenant Colonel Del Evans, U.S. Army, retired company commander, Echo Company, 27th Infantry, Korea, 1951.
And it's funny because as the more I read this book, because you and I have both read Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I can clearly see a lot of the same concepts in Jocko's book really does come from Hackworth.
Well, they were at least like inspired by, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is why he says that this is like he's gotten more from this single book than probably anything else.
Right. And I think Dichotomy of Leadership book more than Extreme Ownership. Well, I think both of them, but really Dichotomy of Leadership, because Hackworth describes in this book a lot in this whole dichotomy of leadership. How, when you do one thing, it's got an opposite effect, right? And that is truly the dichotomy of leadership. It's like the biggest dichotomy of leadership when you're dealing with combat is your primary mission as a leader is to achieve the objective, achieve the mission, right? Mm-hmm. But your conflicting objective is to protect your men and keep your men safe. So that's such a dichotomy, because those are two very opposing forces, aren't they? Right.
Big
so
time.
how do you achieve the objective yet keep all of your troops safe? Because it ultimately, inherently, in order to achieve the objective, you've got to put your men in harm's way, right? So that is the ultimate dichotomy of leadership, and he talks about that. And it doesn't become, and it really, it was obvious to Hackworth as a sergeant, obviously, but as the book proceeds and progresses, as an officer, as he becomes more responsible for more men, more equipment, more decisions, he really starts to see the impact of his decisions. Before we get in, I mean, those are later. You'll hear that later in later chapters. But I want to read this one really quick. So he was basically being told that, you know, you need to go. He's avoided this battlefield commission once already, and thought that he had dodged a bullet because he just had no interest in being an officer. But all of a sudden it comes back around, and they're like, "Yeah, you need to get need to go get this battlefield."
Basically, we're
commission.
not giving you the option.
Right. So it says, he says, "I don't want to be like those 90-day wonders, Sergeant Flemings." I pleaded with the top kick, referring to OCS graduates. Quote, "They don't show me anything. I want to be a platoon sergeant like I am now and just run my platoon. Then one day, maybe a master sergeant. I'll be happy as shit when I've got 3 stripes up and 3 stripes down. I don't want to be a lieutenant." Flemings nodded and said, quote, "And if you don't make master sergeant, look, Hack, if you don't take the commission, one day some second balloon or second lieutenant might come in and take over your platoon. He also might get a lot of your people killed. Then how will you feel? You've got to take the promotion and look after your troops." The first sergeant had a point, and besides, he'd been there and done that, all while I'd just been dreaming about it. He was a from here to eternity NCO, a straight as a die. Flemings knew the score, and I knew he was right. This time, when it counted, he'd worn me down. "Okay, Top," I said, "you've got a deal if I can keep my platoon." The paperwork was done at Division Rear, 150 miles to the south, near Tagu. The Adjutant General, Lieutenant Colonel Master, put me in a tent where casuals slept. I stretched out my fart sack out on the dirt floor and marveled at the luxury of my
fart sack.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it called that in a long time.
On the dirt floor, and he marveled at the luxury of my plush quarters, electric lights no less. I went to be processed, which meant closing out my old records and opening up new officers' ones. And the next day, by the direction of the president, the AG swore me in. He pinned on second lieutenant's bars on my right lapel and then asked me where my crossed rifle infantry insignia was. I didn't have one, and it turns out neither did he, so he pinned on another brass bar on my left lapel, which is how they wore. That's how they're worn in the U.S. Navy.
Right.
And then he said, "Well, that's it, Lieutenant. Congratulations. Report to division forward soonest." And he says, "Well, how do I get there?" I asked him. "You figure it out, Lieutenant." I hadn't told the guys I was sharing the tent with that I was there to be commissioned, so when I went back to collect my trusty M1 and my gear, they all thought it was quite amusing that I was now an officer, and a naval officer at that. I was pretty embarrassed by the whole thing. This is the part that I really wanted to emphasize, especially because I didn't feel any different at all.
Yeah, no shit, duh.
I sort of thought something would happen. I didn't know what, but something, and nothing did. I was still Sergeant Hackworth, with bars, two to be exact. I went to the road and put out my thumb. And I highlighted that because that's so indicative of, I mean, I felt that way when I got promoted from lower enlisted to NCO. That's the way I felt when I went from individual contributor at work to a manager. That's the way I felt. I think everyone can relate to that. I mean, not everyone has been battlefield commissioned, obviously, but everyone has gone through something in their life where they went from one state to another state, and there was this sense within them that they, that they feel like they're an imposter almost, right? We've talked about this before.
So there's two sides to this coin,
yeah.
Right? So you have the imposter syndrome side. Are you done making your point?
Mm-hmm.
You sure?
Yes, sir. I'm just sipping on my coffee somebody bought for us.
Yes, very nice.
Thank you.
So you have the imposter syndrome side, but you also have the other side of this where people can take it and run with it and think that there's something that they're not.
Right.
Like, this doesn't change who you are at your core. So this is one of those instances where you really see what someone is or who they are on inside when you give them power.
Right.
Or rank or title or whatever, which translates to power, let's be honest. In a hierarchy, it translates to power, especially the military. So if someone does it badly and it goes to their head, that shows you who they're at, like, this is the way that they really feel about it, right?
Right.
So if you have a guy who's just an asshole, like toxic leadership, we've all dealt with that before, right?
Yeah, he could have easily walked back to the tent and been like, "Why aren't you standing at attention and saluting me?" You know what I mean?
It's his ego gets in the way, right? So again, it's not like some kind of magical fairy dust is sprinkled on you when you get promoted, you become a CEO of a company, you become whatever happens. It's not like some kind of sprinkled fairy dust happens and all of a sudden you're fucking special. It's not how that works. Right?
Right.
And he states it here, and we've been there before where we've gotten elevated, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of the times when people come out like that with guns ablazing, people do two things. They either step up to the plate and they become a leader, or they absolutely fail because they're fucking scared.
Right.
So that's what a lot of times brings out people being an asshole or being, that ego-driven, just not good leader. What we would consider not a good leader, right?
Right. And I think it's love has to do with their competence in that role or in that position or with that title, right? So the people that are confident in themselves. They don't have, like Hackworth, he was a good leader through and through, whether he wore bars on his collar or NCO rank insignia or not, right? He was a proved, tried and tested, combat leader. He knew his stuff, but he also knew that he wasn't infallible either at the same time. Right?
Absolutely. But he also, there was two things, and these are huge lessons, right? He had confidence in himself. Right? Which is probably the biggest thing.
Right, yeah.
Number one, he had confidence in himself because he knew who he was. Period. And that you can only get that yourself. You can't. Right. Nobody can give that to you. Nobody can. You're not even necessarily born with that. So, and that's that battle between our leaders, born or created. And I think it's a little bit of both.
Right. And I think, the worst time to learn how to do something at the next level is when you're already at the next level, right?
Yes.
So for example, like we talked about on the show a couple of times now that I'm in the process of hiring a new person on my team. And there's already one person on my team. And so essentially I'm trying to hire what would be their peer, right? Their counterpart peer within the team. And I have included her in the process the entire time, right?
Which makes absolute sense.
So she's been on the phone interviews. She's was part of, actually led the skills assessment portion of the interview. She was part of the we couldn't do in-person interviews because of COVID, so we had virtual interviews. But she was a part of all the virtual interviews, and then at the end, she got a vote. But she was very instrumental in the entire process. And I asked her, I was like, how many other managers at the company do you know include their direct reports in the hiring process? And she goes, she didn't know anybody. And it's true. A lot of managers where I work, and even where other places that I've worked, they don't generally include their direct reports in the hiring process. And, so a lot of people have asked, why would I include my direct in that process? And the answer is simple. One, because having that direct buy-in into the process, it's only going to help build our team, right? Because now when I'm going to look to her to help train this new person, she feels like she's got some skin in the game, right? That hiring decision wasn't done in a vacuum, that she was a part of the process. That's the first reason. The second reason is I'm trying to develop her as a future leader of the organization. And someday she's going to be a manager herself, and she's going to have to hire her own people. And the worst time to learn how to do that is when you're in the position and you're responsible for doing it. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've been in that position myself, where the first time I had to do it was when I was doing it and I had no prior experience in something. So I want this to be a lesson to anyone listening to this. If you've got a manager or a supervisor or somebody within a leadership position that invites you to come along to be a part of a meeting, even if it's just to observe, you got to think about that as a developmental opportunity. And don't, a lot of people will be like, yeah, I don't really want to do that, and they don't want no part of it. I think that's a missed opportunity. I think you should take every opportunity you can, even if it's a fly on the wall, even if you're just sitting there and observing. That is an opportunity to learn something that is outside of your element or outside of your pay grade or outside of your, purview normally, and you get a little peek behind the curtain on how things are done. I think that is a huge opportunity, and if you pass that up, you're gonna miss out. And I think Hackworth has had many mentors throughout his career, as we read through the book, where a lot of these leaders have done that, kind of took him under their wing and maybe shared with him some things that were not quite at his pay grade or at his level, but shared with them anyway. And he saw that as a developmental opportunity because he grew up basically without a father. His father died really young, and he kind of went from foster home to foster home. So he never really had a father figure growing up. And so he used the military men in his life as pseudo, male influencers in his life, and really looked to them to kind of fill that void and that gap in his life. So I think that's why he was so open to it, and that's why he became such a good leader that he did, is because he became open to good leadership, right?
Well, yeah, so I do have another, it's not too long, but it's long enough, but it just kind of shows his type of leadership, and frankly, good leadership in the military in general. And I'll read through it. So, August 8th, drawn, an overcast rainy day. It was a perfect day for the mission. The Chinks would be like us, all hunkered down in their positions, because what? If you ain't, rain is your friend as an infantryman, right?
Yeah.
Hunkered down in their positions. I should say it's good for infantrymen that don't care about going out in it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Trying to stay dry. We made final preparations for the attack, test firing and cleaning weapons, last-minute briefs, organizing a forward aid station just behind the LD. We married up with the tanks and tracks, and at 1700 we shot down the road like an express train to the deafening roar of masted artillery fire, which is your baby.
Hell yes.
Steel rain, crazy. Baby. Steel rain. Oh, it's unbelievable. The fire for effect. The tanks, with a stripped-down 3rd Platoon riding piggyback, quickly and easily rolled through the lanes we'd cut in the minefield and swung up behind the enemy positions. The operation was going exactly to plan. Hill 1062 and all key enemy terrain around our objective were simultaneously being blistered with high explosive, Willie Peter, and smoke, and the enemy was blinded and surprise was ours. We dismounted the tanks and rushed to the base of the hill and stopped. I could not believe what my eyes were telling me. The gradual slope we'd expected from the map this is so funny. The gradual slope from the map basically turned out to be a vertical wall. The best laid plan of mice and men and one goddamn Chinese century, I thought. You can read all kinds of books, all the kinds of books that you want, and you can make all kinds of plans you want, Steve Prozenka had said. But when you get out in the field, those books and those plans might not meet the eye of the situation you find there. So you just have to roll with it. Right, Steve? Let's roll. Mm-hmm. So what's the best laid plans usually only last till first contact, right?
That's right. Yeah.
This is Murphy kicking you in the balls and you just got to adapt and overcome. So, So let's roll.
I read that just real quick. I read this, and it reminded me of a mission that I had planned out at NTC.
Right.
And,
that was always the best place for this shit because it's all fucked up.
Yeah. Well, I looked at this. I was looking at the map, doing like you would typically do like a pre-recon.
Yeah, right. A map
route,
recon.
a map recon, right? And I'm like, okay, so I planned out this route, and it looked great. The grade, the contour lines, the grade looked doable, and it didn't look rough at all. And so, of course, we were going to traverse at night with night vision goggles, and I've got my whole platoon, and we're out there, and we get like halfway into it, dude, and we're like boulders. I mean, we're talking, these boulders are so big, like Humvees aren't getting
because you don't see those on a fucking
no. So we ended up kind of driving off the planned route, and we were, we had to get out of this boulder field, and we ended up driving off of the map that we had at NTC. We actually drove off the map, so I couldn't actually see where we were on the map se. And then all of a sudden, like, we started seeing like other things sticking out of the ground that look like sharp rocks or whatever. So I got out of my truck and I had a like flashlight, and I started walking out front of the truck, and there was like unexploded ordnance and shit sticking out of the ground. I'm like,
Jesus Christ,
guys, I think we're in an impact area. So we had to very diligently, slowly back our vehicles out and try to keep our tire tracks on top of the tracks that we created coming into it. Oh my God, dude. I was so stressed. We ended up getting out of there, drive back through the boulder field. By the time it was all said and done, I got my ass chewed by the OCs.
I would say the mission was a failure.
Yeah. As soon as the OC caught up with us, they're like, yeah, your whole section's dead. You just drove through a minefield.
You just drove through a minefield.
Yeah.
You're all dead. Beep. He pulls out the God gun and just,
yeah. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, sorry. I just, when you read that, I just totally reminded me of that. Of that mission.
Right, Steve, let's roll. I thought as I slung my M1 across my back and started climbing hand over hand straight up. My guys followed. No orders were given. The men in 3rd Platoon were a magnificent team. They'd stayed loose, flexible, and above all, cool. Meanwhile, the tanks had pulled back off the road and joined the tracks as the cleared lane through the open rice paddy east of the road. Together, they were laying down welcome, murderous overhead fire support. And when I got to the top, I jumped into a trench, almost on top of 2 enemy soldiers. I shot them both, then started blasting stunned Chinamen on the left and the right. Meanwhile, my guys poured into the trench, and we fanned out through the intricate maze-like trench system, knocking the Chinese defenders off as we went. When we crested the ridge, I used to love assaulting trenches, man. Like in training, it was because it's when you got to throw grenades and all kinds of shit. Yeah. And when you crested the ridge, we looked down into the enemy's main battle positions. They were manned only by a light security force, but behind the main positions in a deep draw was what looked like a complete rifle company. They'd been eating, and now they scurried for cover while our point-blank plunging fire took a heavy toll. Our artillery was still slamming in, and we were now in complete control of the ridge and had captured 3 prisoners. It was time to withdraw. So we quickly slid back the way that we had come, while the tanks returned to the base of the hill to pick us up. I sent the wounded down first with 2 squads, and the prisoners, and stayed with a couple men to hold the chink position until the WIA were loaded and were our task force ready to split. So artillery, quad 50, and tank fire kept the stunned Chinese at bay. When quad 50s, Jesus Christ.
Right.
And when we too finally slid down it's like an anti-aircraft gun. Yeah. And they're using it to suppress a fire. Finally slid down the hill. And after I'd given the order to withdraw, one of the tracks had panicked, left the cleared lane for the rice paddy, and hit a mine. Now the disabled vehicle was straight right across the lane itself, blocking our only escape through the minefield. So meanwhile, the Chinese were getting themselves together, and they started putting down a lot of fire, small arms, mortar, artillery, and SP. So as yet, they didn't have our range, but even with their lousy comms, it wouldn't take long. And there was only one alternative. I shouted to the tank platoon leader, let's try one tank over that bridge, and if the son of a bitch holds, we'll go out that way. So the 36-ton Sherman gingerly rolls across the semi-collapsed bridge, and the bridge sagged, swayed, but it held. Oh, my God. I radioed the crew of the damaged attack to abandon their vehicle, load on other tracks, and follow the lead Sherman's trail to get the hell out of there. And once my own tank had crossed the bridge, I ordered the tank platoon leader to couple a fire of armor-piercing rounds into the disabled track. No way was I going to have those 450 cals dismounted by the enemy and remounted on the hill facing my platoon. So perfect, right? That's exactly what you would do.
Yeah.
The round split the thin-skinned vehicle in half, and it burst into flames. We made it back, 16 wounded, nobody badly hurt, no friendly dead, and 3 prisoners. It's kind of amazing that you can do all that shit and no one dies. It's just crazy.
Right, yeah.
It's amazing. No friendly dead and 3 prisoners. Not a bad show. I got off my tank and was making sure our wounded were being looked after when a lieutenant colonel raced up, bellowing like a bull. Who's in charge here? I am, sir, Second Lieutenant Hackworth. And it's funny, second lieutenant, that they actually called themselves second lieutenant instead of lieutenant, right?
Yeah.
And who gave the order for destroying my track? I did, sir. Well, I'm going to have you pay for it. That's $120,000. You do not have the authority to destroy my vehicle. Lieutenant Colonel Henry, it says Lieutenant Colonel Henry, CO of the 21st AA Battalion, raged in, chewing my ass for not going into the minefield with a tank and winching his damn truck out. I tried to explain that it was not so hot out there. It was so hot out there that no infantry soldier who had lived, that we'd barely gotten his crew out alive as it was. He did not want to hear. Finally, I got pissed off, very pissed off, and I told him that no way was I going to risk one infantryman for his rotten piece of twisted steel, that my people's lives were more important than his goddamn clapped-out truck, and that if I had to make the same decision again, I would do it in spades. Colonel Henry was livid. You will pay for this, he screamed. A jeep screeched up, and out of it jumped my regimental commander, Colonel George B. Sloan, the divisional commander, Major General Ira P. Swift, and the corps commander, Major General John Iron Mike O'Daniel. All 3 were great combat leaders and of World War II. General O'Daniel boomed out, "Where's the platoon leader?" Oh, shit, I really must be in trouble now, I thought. Sir, Second Lieutenant Hackworth, I reported. Second Lieutenant, you are now a First Lieutenant, as of now. And, O'Daniel said, thumping a silver star on his chest, I'm also recommending you for the Distinguished Service Cross. I watched the complete attack from the regimental OP, and it was outstanding. Just outstanding. It was one of the finest demonstrations of professionalism and leadership I have seen in combat. Your platoon operated as a perfect military force. I want you to tell me which soldiers you want me to decorate. All of them, sir, I said. And right then and there, every man in my platoon who went on the raid was given a Bronze Star or Silver Star by this fine fighting corps commander.
Damn. So isn't it amazing how one event is perceived to be completely polar opposites depending on the observer?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And here's the thing. All right, so I understand the track, right? I mean, that's expensive equipment, but it's fucking equipment. And the fact that colonel, that lieutenant colonel, gave more shit about his track than his soldiers,
right,
is unbelievable to me.
It says a lot about him.
It says a lot about him, and that right there, that's the difference between being a manager. So this guy like spreadsheets his fucking his equipment.
Right.
He spreadsheets out his equipment, and this is like his little fiefdom that he's put his claim on. It's not about his troops. It's not about the people he's in charge of. He's a hell of a manager because he can manage his equipment and keep it nice and tidy.
Right.
But that's not leadership.
Right.
So.
Yeah, the men under his charge were clearly nothing more than another line item on his spreadsheet.
Right, exactly. Right. They were lying. Well, so I'm in charge of 150 soldiers.
Right.
They're just a line item. And that's not the way to fucking lead, folks. So, anyway, I just thought that this was like and then you have the old crusty commanders watching from the hill.
Yeah.
Like, because it's equipment. Who gives a fuck?
Right.
I mean, you need equipment to fight, right? But
yeah.
But at the end of the day, take care of what you can, but it's not worth someone dying over.
Right. Absolutely.
So. Yep.
Yeah, you can replace equipment, right?
Yep, but you can't turn a light back on in someone's freaking eyes. You know?
No, sir.
So that's one of these things that I have issue with is I feel like people dehumanize their people.
Right.
And that might be their coping mechanism. But what I always say to people is you can take a machine, all right, and you can take it apart, all its pieces, and put it back together, and it works. Again, you can take it apart again, bring it back together, and when you pull the trigger, like let's take a rifle, for example.
Right.
Take it apart, put it back together, you pull the trigger, it still comes to life.
Exactly.
You can't take a person apart, put it back together, and it works all the time.
Right.
We are not machines. I don't know what the answer is to the difference. You know, is it a soul? Whatever. It's whatever you believe it to be.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, we're more important than machines are.
Yep.
So, especially in combat.
Your people are your greatest asset.
They absolutely are. And unfortunately, for too many people, they're a line item. So, sit and look in the mirror on that one, folks. What do you really believe?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, Bennett.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, I think we should talk a little about Space Force. What do you say?
Well, the other one, no, because I think we're correlate. This is just a better segue piece.
Do you think we should talk about the
Sergeant Major?
Yeah, okay, let's do that one. So if you're following the news, there's been a lot, and I mean
and I think this was like yesterday, actually. I think this article came out, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of, how would you want to put it? A lot of scrutiny being placed on the leaders at Fort Hood as of late, right? And it really spurred from from a lot of things. A lot of things, but the sexual misconduct and several soldiers being killed
and fucking disappearing.
Yeah,
and I spent crazy.
I spent a good amount of time on Fort Hood. I mean, of my 10 years, I was there for 8 years of it. Right, I spent. For my first few years in the military on 4th Infantry Division on one side of Fort Hood. Went to Korea for a year and came back and basically spent the rest of my time over on the 1st Cav side. So got to see a lot of Fort Hood, lived in Copper's Cove, lived in Killeen, lived on base for a little while. So I understand the area and I understand the complexity. Now, obviously, a lot of people would say, well, it's not as rough as some other bases that they were a part of. I heard that, a lot of towns that surround military bases are rough in general anyway, typically. But what they call the command climate of Fort Hood just became out of control. So much so that an independent civilian committee was assembled to do an independent investigation and audit, essentially, of the command climate at Fort Hood.
Well, one of the things I do want to bring up is that it is the most, it's basically by population,
Yeah.
it is the largest military installation in the world.
Yeah.
It's bigger
huge.
than Fort Bragg. It's bigger than any of those things. Like, I mean, it's, yeah. I mean, you're talking 50,000 people.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you've got two full full divisions
and the core
and three
leadership.
corps.
3 corps
Right.
there, the leadership, or the command side of it, right?
Yep.
And so you're talking about something like 45,000 soldiers, and then all the civilians, and then all the families that go along
Right.
with that. So you're talking about, I mean, I'm saying just personnel alone, you're at like 54,000, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
doesn't
easy.
include all the other stragglers, all the families and everything, because a lot of them are billeted on base.
Right.
So, I mean, it's insane, the size of Fort Hood. So
Yeah. Yep.
it is
And-
it is the most populous U.S. military installation in the world. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah. It takes. I mean, to travel from one end of Fort Hood to another, it takes you a while, man.
Like
It's-
Fort Bragg is bigger in land mass, I think, but when it comes to actual population, it's close, but it's not as big.
Yeah.
Either way.
So as a result of this committee, essentially, they ended up relieving 14 leaders within the chain of command from the acting 3-corps commander, which was a 2-star general, to the 1st Cav commander, also a major general, some sergeant majors, all the way down to they ended up relieving people all the way down to the squad level over all of this, right? And there's just a tremendous number of recommendations that were made to the 3-corps commander about different things that they need to take, actions they need to take to correct what they call the negative climate. And they're taking a new position. It's called People First, right? And so the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because since then, this top enlisted, so basically Command Sergeant Major of 3-corps, was suspended pending an investigation.
Temporarily suspended.
Right now, I'm just going to read this. So, top enlisted soldier at Fort Hood suspended amid investigation into alleged unprofessional language. So it says here that has been suspended pending investigation into allegations that he used, quote, unprofessional language towards subordinates recently, according to a brief statement on the matter. Command Sergeant Major Arthur Cliff, I don't know how to say his last name. Is it Bargone?
Burgoyne.
Burgoyne, okay, was temporarily suspended on Friday by 3-corps and Fort Hood Commander Lieutenant General Pat White. The unprofessional language had nothing to do with race, gender, sexual orientation, or sexual harassment, according to an Army official familiar with the situation. The Army official characterized the comments in question as, quote, direct talk, end quote. That is sometimes used within light infantry formations where, how did you say it again? Burgoyne, sorry. I apologize. Spent much of his career, but not what is expected of a corps level command sergeant major. The investigation will determine whether the comments were at odds with the service's, quote, people first policy
Jesus
push,
Christ.
which is intended to foster the environment and dignity and respect of the official added. Now, so here's my point. Here's my problem with this. Do I think that there was a command climate issue within Fort Hood that needed to be addressed? Yes, absolutely. Do I agree that measures need to be taken and commanders and leadership need to be held accountable? Yes, absolutely. Do I think that everyone that's been relieved so far probably should have been relieved? Absolutely. Do I think that many, many things still need to happen in terms of retraining and et cetera, et cetera? Yes, I do. But here's the problem that I have, and it seems to be a habitual problem, and that is what I like to call over pendulum, right? So
Overcorrection.
overcorrection. So a pendulum swings two different directions, right? and it swings left and it swings right. And it seems like every time the pendulum gets a little bit out of whack or it swings a little bit too far left or too far right, we need to make a correction. And I agree with that. However, oftentimes the correction that is put in place is an overcorrection where they force that pendulum to go so far the other direction that it's unrealistic, right? And that's where I have a problem with relieving this guy for direct talk. Now, okay, he's a 3-corps level command sergeant major.
Well, but
level,
you have to look at too his background.
No, I understand that, but
right.
I mean, if you're a corps level command sergeant major, you need to learn
the politics of it.
Exactly, you need to polish up your politics, right?
But this is what we're talking about,
right?
It's. I wonder. So they're very vague in this article.
They are, yeah.
And at the end of the day, I can guarantee you that 90% of infantry soldiers, because that's what Burgoyne is,
yep.
And I wonder who he was talking to,
right?
Because they don't even tell you that either.
No, they don't.
But if he was, so this is a situation where some pencil pusher, that some public affairs person, or some, and I hate to say it, I'm going to say it, officer, probably with a bug in their ass, overheard this sergeant major, either, it could have been a motivation talk. Because
Sure.
What else do they talk about in public? They don't chew people's asses in public.
Right.
They don't. Not a corps command, not a corps sergeant major, right? So he's probably talking to a bunch of freaking guys or and gals at like First Cav, very much like you were, Eddie. I mean, this guy was he's an infantryman. That's his background. So he was thinking, I'm talking to some other soldiers, right?
Yep.
Direct talk. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yep.
So this guy was a LERP guy, a Halo team leader.
Right.
At Bragg. 82nd Airborne senior enlisted soldier at the same post became the 82nd Airborne's senior enlisted advisor.
Right.
That's the Navy term though.
Yeah, and they say it's not pending necessarily any punitive actions, but let's be honest. If you're at this level and you're being your career's done. His career's done.
Basically. You
know what I mean?
In essence, unless you have a general that has enough sack to be like, this is ridiculous. Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah. Well, it's the 3-corps commander, the Lieutenant General White, is the one that basically suspended him pending the investigation because he's under a huge scrutiny now because of everything else that's been going on.
Right. So it's kind of a folly of circumstance too.
Right. Now he probably, under other circumstances, probably nothing would have ever happened.
Yeah, but he's at this point. So let's see. He's been in since... Homeboy's been in since 86.
Yeah, right.
And started his active duty career at Fort Hood in 92. So he's been in, almost 30 years.
Right.
Or over 30 years. Maybe it's time to retire, bro.
Yeah. And
Sergeant Major Burgoyne.
Well, here's the thing. I think things like this are going to force leaders like other senior NCOs and maybe even senior officers to really start to look at their longevity within the military. I honestly think that this is going, like I said, overcorrection is going to drive good leaders out of the military, and it's going to make way for, you said it, pencil pusher. It's going to make way for people that are more politically correct but not necessarily better leaders, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place to...
Especially in the military.
Right. That's a dangerous thing. And that's a fine line. Now, am I saying that I think it's okay to use language that goes against, race, gender, sexual orientation?
But they even said that it wasn't that.
Correct. It was direct talk.
So anything other than the unprofessional language... Go fuck yourself, unprofessional language. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? The problem I've been having with all this kind of talk, though, is that the goalposts keep moving.
Right.
Is we get to a point where we're all politically correct and we are freaking, gender, however the hell you want to be called. We get to this point, and then you move the goalposts again. Like, I can't even say the word fuck. I say, fuck you. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And if you can't handle it, turn the dial. Listen to another podcast. There's just a point when this shit has to, if you're not being a racial bigot asshole, you're not being a fucking womanizing freaking, what's the word I'm looking for? Gender smashing person, right? Not worry, being cognizant of people's sexual orientation and not sexually harassing people. What the fuck else do you need?
Right.
Daddy talked to me mean, or the sergeant major was mean to me.
Right.
That's
like
all that I hear, and
yeah.
I can't do it. Like I respect other people, right? And I respect your whatever, but I need some of that too.
Yes.
And just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
We've gotten too deep into this shit, and it's just toxic.
So without knowing what he said, I'm on Sergeant Major's side here.
I am too, frankly.
Without knowing what he had said, just based off the article that I read, I think he's a victim of circumstance.
An overcorrection.
I think he's getting caught up in the whitewashing of this overcorrection
of the actual bullshit command climate.
Right.
And this is an overcorrection, and again, how often do we do this? The snap corrections.
Yes.
And then we realize, ooh, maybe we shouldn't gone into complete lockdown.
Unfortunately, some people's careers are going to be absolutely destroyed as a result of this overcorrection.
And you know what though? Here is the biggest fallout from this is you have good leaders, really good leaders that now are afraid to open their mouth.
Yeah, they're going to walk on eggshells.
And this is horrifically bad to have a society where your leaders can't even lead because every single word they say is under a microscope. They can't even be themselves anymore.
Right.
Without repercussion. They're just going to walk away and say, fuck you. You guys lead yourself out of the paper bag. It's like, it's no, like seriously, it seriously that people have to embrace some of these things. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean, again, you don't have to listen to it, but there's plenty of people that do. All right.
Yeah.
God damn it. Like unbelievable. I feel for this,
I do.
This
I do
guy.
too. I feel for him.
You know what? He might even admit, maybe I could have toned it down a little bit. And you know what? He probably will. He probably has. But of course, here's the other shitty part of this. We'll never hear his side of the story.
Never will. Nope.
Never, ever. It's you are guilty until proven innocent now instead of innocent until proven guilty. And I really need people to understand just because someone parrots it like a goddamn parrot over and over again doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
So, anyway.
Yep. Feel bad for the guy.
And,
Sorry, bro.
Give people that you freaking accuse of shit, give them the opportunity to defend themselves.
Yeah,
period.
You'll never hear a statement made by him.
Ever.
Nothing.
Ever.
He's just gonna quietly pack up his shit and exit stage left, and you're never gonna hear from him ever again.
He's deployed 6 times, 3 to Iraq, 3 to Afghanistan. Who knows what type of leader he was, but I suspect he was very good.
I think so too.
I mean, the guy's been through, Ranger school, all of it. Freaking stellar career. You don't become you don't become a corps sergeant major without it.
Right. Yeah, man. I agree. Maybe he'll find a home over with the Space Force when it's all
He'll be a guardian.
Stop.
So we can roll right into that.
Yes. So next topic is
Space Force personnel to be called Guardians.
Guardians
of the Galaxy.
Do you know what their slogan is? It's Semper Supura.
Semper Supura.
always above.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
no shit.
Bullshit. Bullshit and no shit. Like if they're in fucking space, of course, you're above.
So get this.
But always above? I don't know, man.
Soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and now Guardians. That's the lineup for the personnel in the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and America's newest armed services. You've guessed it, the U.S. Space Force. Vice President Mike Pence announced.
Here's the funniest thing about this, though.
Yeah.
They chose that name.
They did?
Heritage, mission, culture, Guardians, a name chosen by space professionals, because that's what they were before. Remember? Space professionals.
Right.
So this is a name chosen by space professionals for space professionals. We have chosen Guardians. What in the actual fuck is going on here?
Vice President Pence announced that personnel in the Space Force will be called Guardians. He spoke during a White House event marking the first anniversary of the U.S. Space Force yesterday. Quote, "It's my honor on behalf of the President of the United States to announce that henceforth the men and women of the United States Space Force will be known as Guardians," Pence said during the ceremonies. Let me tell you something. I mean, bro, like we said before we started recording, can you imagine these guys walking into like an Air Force dining facility?
Oh, yeah, baby.
And being like, look, oh, quiet, shh,
the Guardians are
here. There are roughly 4,000 Guardians currently in the U.S. Space Force, all from the Air Force. One of the newest members of its service is in orbit aboard the International Space Station. Space Force Colonel Michael Hopkins, a NASA astronaut, transferred from the Air Force to the Space Force. This is a far cry from earlier this year when General John J. Raymond and Chief Master Sergeant Roger Toberman were the only two members of the Space Force. Wow. I'm telling you, man. I mean, I get it, I guess. But, I mean, when all these other branches were created, I wonder if everyone poked fun at them, too. Probably. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, man.
Well,
Guardians,
it kind of puts a smash on my. So the community I come from in the Marines, we have a saying: always, never above you, never below you, always beside you. Well, yeah. I guess
not anymore.
Not anymore. We got Guardians. Motherfuckers up in space, always above us.
The Space Force has to form even as missions continue. Quote, "Let me urge each and every one of you Guardians to keep pushing," Pence said. "Keep pushing the vision and the mission of the United States Space Force, which is to ensure that all Americans is dominant in space." Wow. All right, man. If you say so, I guess we'll call you Guardians. And I can't wait. The first time I see somebody walking by with the uniform that says U.S. Space Force, I am going to just be like, Guardian!
Thank you for your service, Guardian.
Thank you, Guardian. Always above me. Get off me, please.
Get off me. Always on top of me.
Always on top of me. Oh, Jesus. Oh, man. All right. So, as we know, we are getting towards the end of 2020. And everyone is like, thank God already that we're finally getting this year behind us. I saw a meme the other day where it was what was that? Back to the Future Doc, what's his name?
Doc Brown.
Doc Brown. So Doc Brown was kneeling down, and Michael J. Fox, the character Marty McFly, was kind of sitting in the DeLorean, and the meme was like, the Doc was like, all right, now, never, ever,
Ever go
ever
to 2020.
never, ever set it to 2020.
Well, I saw another meme very shortly after that the other day, which was a DeLorean blown to shit. And it said, this is what happened when he set it to 2020. and you know what, folks? Okay, I get it. 2020 has been, one of those years, the COVID, lockdown, people have lost jobs, tons of, just bad shit's going on, a horrendous presidential election cycle, or I should say national election cycle, because it's still happening. You've got Georgia, you've got some different things still going on. All the lawsuits are still there. Joe Biden, half the country's Joe Biden's the president, half the country's, Trump's still the president. Very divided, all this shit. But in actuality, how much has your life changed?
Besides masks?
Besides masks.
And working from home?
And working from home a lot. How has your life changed? I mean, really?
Well,
I mean, it has, right? But, of course it has. Your patterns have changed. You can't go out to eat every night necessarily. Well, that depends on where you live, though. That depends on where you live. I could still go to a restaurant every night where I live.
Sure, right. Yeah, I can too.
And miraculously, as soon as I take my mask off, when I sit down, it's just, it's whatever.
So here's the thing. I can't figure out how were they able to train COVID to be so smart?
Exactly.
Because COVID has to know what state they're in, what state it's in, and knows what the rules to play by. It's amazing. COVID is really, really smart.
Right. But either way,
yes,
it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's still there. So I really thought about today too. So it's just one of those things. Life really. I mean, frankly though, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little insulated because I'm still getting income and I still make money and all these things, and I don't have a per se brick and mortar business. So those people are hurting.
Yeah, some people lost their livelihood,
and at
their
the
jobs.
And at the end of the day, the way I look at that is it's a complete and utter failing upon our elected leaders for not doing the right things. Because I'm sorry, but if you can keep Target open, you can keep you can keep every single small business open.
I agree.
If you want to you need to take the precautions, take the precautions. It's one of those first times in history type of things where you're literally quarantining healthy people instead of sick people.
Right.
Or people at risk.
Yes.
On the why. Because so it's one of those things where it takes me to a dark place, because I've seen us in the military, especially if we've been deployed, especially if we've been to war, we've seen the dark side of humans.
Yeah.
And we also know what it's like. We've alluded to this earlier in the episode about power. Mm-hmm. Power, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Did you hear the Dan Crenshaw torches Pelosi?
Yeah.
In a blistering House floor speech. Did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Well, let's take a minute and let's hear that. Ready?
Condemn in the strongest possible terms the actions of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Just last week, referring to her obstruction of bipartisan targeted relief bills that we could have voted on this floor, she said, quote, "Don't characterize what we did before as a mistake. This was not a mistake, it was a decision," end quote. When asked what had changed, why she is finally coming to the table on COVID relief, her response was simple: a new president. We've known for months that Speaker Pelosi was holding the American people hostage for political gain. I've said it, my colleagues have said it. While Americans suffered under unscientific, foolish lockdowns, Pelosi withheld relief for political purposes. Not policy purposes, but political purposes. But we now have a full admission. She said the quiet part out loud. This was never about what was best for the American people, never about honest policy disagreement. It was about preventing President Trump from getting any credit. It was about politics. Speaker Pelosi made a simple calculation. She bet that if she could keep Congress from reaching a deal on COVID relief, that would hurt President Trump and Republicans and give her more power. Even when members of her own party asked her to bring common sense, standalone, bipartisan relief measures to the House floor that would easily become law, she refused. She would say over and over again that nothing is better than something. And she was being honest. She honestly believed that nothing was better than something, but better for who? Not for the American people, that's for sure. She believed that nothing was better than something for her and her party. It's hard to imagine a more awful and heartless strategy. And what's worse, Speaker Pelosi does all of this while people in her home state suffer from unscientific, unconstitutional lockdowns the Democrat leaders in California are forcing upon their citizens. These lockdowns are not based in science. They never have been. Study after study shows that they yield little, if any, benefits, but they impose extreme costs on the small businesses suffering under them. You know what else? The Democrat leaders making these executive orders, they know this too, because they're violating their own guidelines. The Speaker of the House couldn't even let a pesky little lockdown get in the way of a haircut appointment, even though those same lockdowns destroy the lives of her constituents. We've all seen the heartbreaking video of Angela Marsden, the owner of Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill in Los Angeles. Everyone should have to watch that testimony as Democrats shut down her outdoor dining while a Hollywood studio sets up shop right next door. She represents millions of Americans suffering who have taken note of the hypocrisy of these lockdowns, of the double standards, as big businesses can operate freely while small businesses are shamed into submission and told wrongly that they are the ones who must sacrifice to slow the spread, that the demise of the business they spent their whole lives building is the price to pay because if it just saves one life. But this is unscientific nonsense, and we all know it. Study after study shows outdoor dining is safe, that outbreaks are not occurring because of our small businesses, our gyms, our restaurants, our salons, and yet these small businesses are in the crosshairs of cowardly politicians across the country. This madness has to stop. This arbitrary application of executive orders is deeply, deeply unconstitutional. Justice Gorsuch recently stated, "There is no world in which the Constitution tolerates color-coded executive edicts that reopen liquor stores and bike shops, but shutter churches, synagogues, and mosques." Americans have had enough. It is time to stand up against the hypocrisy of these so-called leaders deliberately harming the citizens they claim to represent, and to condemn the deeply partisan actions of the Speaker of this House. I yield back.
And I have to tell you, well, first of all, Dan doesn't mess around, bro.
No.
He says it the way that it is. But, I mean, the fact that...
I also want to put this forward, though, before you get too deep into that.
Yeah.
This is... So, unfortunately, Dan is good a leader as he is, right? Mm-hmm. Has to play the game in Congress.
Sure.
So we have to look at that game and how it's played, because if you look at where he's getting money, to me it calls into question his message.
Well, I don't know where he's getting money.
I'm just saying, if people have questions, look at it, and you know what? Every congressman, every senator has to fundraise and do this shit. Sure. And the system's fucking broken. Well, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. I just want you to know. So this is really for the people that are going to be like, well, what Dan, he takes money from big oil and he this, that, and the other thing. I hear you and I acknowledge it, but I want you to listen to his words. Don't look
the message.
Look at the message. Don't look at the overall bigger picture of the system. So just listen.
Yeah, and the part of the message that I really found interesting is how that that small business owner basically is told to close up shop, and right next door is a Hollywood studio that's ramping up with all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Because like the big
Right.
businesses are encouraged to continue to
and
to operate.
I'm not even mad at the business. So here's where I take this, right? Is I'm not even mad at the movie studio for setting up and doing that. That's not their. It's
Right.
not on them.
No,
what
I agree.
this is,
Yep.
this is the city. This is the
Yep.
people in charge choosing winners and losers. This is
Yes,
the people,
exactly.
your elected people or appointed people by your elected people, making decisions that are, they're not fair. It's literally, you're closing down this restaurant, saying that they can't do this, but you give this movie studio with the exact same setup a permit to do business.
Right.
Fuck you. That is wrong. And at the end of the day, if I was in charge of that area, I would have immediately, you have to do one of two things. You either have to allow these other businesses to open back up, or you have to shut them all down.
Right.
So
All or nothing.
It's all or nothing, but it
otherwise
shouldn't be it shouldn't be a shutdown anyway. It should be open for business.
Right.
Period.
That's what I'm saying is like the way that these laws are drawn up, it implies that COVID knows the difference. It implies that the virus knows that the people that are operating in this case the Hollywood studio, they can't catch it, but yet anyone that visits this small business across the street is 100% susceptible to the disease. Like, that doesn't make any sense. The virus doesn't give a shit, right?
No, of
the
course
virus
it
is
does.
the virus is going to do what the virus does, and it's people making decisions that are affecting the livelihoods of Americans. I think is
And there's
absolutely
so
ludicrous.
much. There's so much leadership that's right now that's do as I say, not as I do. Because
I know.
over and over, dozens, hundreds of times, you see these politicians open their mouth and tell you to not do this, and then
And then
turn
they go do
around
it.
and go do it. That right there, that's public confidence. You've broken that. Like that.
Right.
Nobody trusts a word coming out of your mouth now. You.
Right. Like Pelosi going to get a haircut
Yeah.
when everyone else is supposed to be
I mean,
closed
you
up.
literally can
Yeah.
name off dozens of people. And it's not just Democrats, it's Republicans too.
It's both,
It's
right.
leadership in general. The leadership, the elites in this world that are doing this shit, making these decisions, those are the people that we blame. Not everything is Trump's fault. Not everything is freaking Cuomo's fault. But how they react to these things is their fault. And again, we have to only we can hold them accountable. Too often you see these sons of bitches breaking laws and nothing happening for it. And
Right.
I'm not saying that not wearing a mask should be an offensive law. Get the fuck out of here. That's just some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. But this goes way deeper. And all it's doing is adding fissures to those cracks that are already there. It's basically pouring water into the fissures and letting it freeze again. And when it thaws out, it's going to crack even more. And the next thing you know, this is why I'm saying this, it's because we've kind of moved off topic and now I'm moving us back.
Okay.
Is that 2021, in my opinion, could be worse than 2020. So buckle up. Seriously.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
No, seriously.
Yeah, you're right. It could be. Absolutely could be. Right? So, touched a nerve, obviously, which is fine.
But you know what? It will touch a nerve for a lot of people.
So we're talking about now. I read an article for Forbes magazine that we wanted to kind of talk about, and I found it interesting because this is really the time of year where a lot of people, usually or generally or historically, have started to think about New Year's resolutions, right?
Yeah, baby.
And so this article, it's interesting in that it proposes an alternative. It says, are you too tapped out for a resolution? And we talked about being tapped out due to, like you just said, right? COVID-19, the political climate. Like, everyone is just tired, right? So it says, instead of a New Year's resolution, try reflection instead. This is interesting. As 2020 draws to a welcome close, many of our clients report that they are experiencing physical and emotional exhaustion and low motivation, and that their teams and coworkers are likewise afflicted. Quote, I know I'm lucky to have a job that I can do safely at home, said Bennett, an operations director in Bay Area tech company, but I am tapped out and don't know how to motivate myself, much less my team. We're all in a funk. And I think everyone can relate to that to some degree.
Absolutely.
Right? A little bit fatigued with everything, right? This funk is widespread and profound. In an effort to combat the dark days of the pandemic and election uncertainty across the U.S., Christmas decorations went up early. This week's administration of Pfizer's vaccination signals a hopeful way forward, although rising cases signal that it will likely get worse before it gets better, which is what you alluded to in 2021,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Amidst all of this, New Year's resolutions may seem like altogether too much, and in any case, it's not really a good time to join a gym. No kidding. If you do plan to follow this annual tradition, it's probably best to focus on achievable resolutions. As an alternative to resolving, here is a reflection exercise to help bring closure to 2020 and set intentions for 2021. The following questions can be done individually or with your team to help cultivate positivity and gratitude and set intentions for the year to come. So here we go. Reflecting back on 2020. So here's some questions. 1. What were some successes or bright spots from 2020? How can you carry them over into 2021? Number 2. Well, do you want to talk about each one of them or just read through them and then talk about it?
Well, let's go one by one.
Okay, so first one. What were some successes or bright spots from 2020 and how can you carry them over to 2021? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, and I was kind of alluding to that too, is look at, so I was saying it's not necessarily that bad. Like it could be so much worse.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was really bad for some people. Some people died, right? But look at this runs right into what we always talk about is gratitude and things. So just know that you still have a house over your head. I mean, there's so many bright spots that could be illuminated. You just have to look for them. Bright spots. You're healthy. Your kids are healthy. No one in your immediate circle died, maybe. Maybe that's your bright spot. Maybe the fact that you still have a job. Maybe the fact that your business actually it became more productive and more successful because of the way things are being done now. Maybe because you're able to spend more time with your family because you're working from home. Those are all bright spots. This thing has systematically transformed our society a little bit. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we like to focus on the negative. It is gonna cause some negatives with like the housing market. It's gonna cause some negatives with the one that is really gonna hit is the commercial real estate market, and nobody's even talking about that right now, and the effect on it. Because think about this: you have where over half your if you're a business owner and you were able to effectively still run your business without having a giant building housing all your stuff and all your people and everyone comes to work every day, and instead you could be like, hey, we can move to the smaller building and save all this money.
Yeah, right.
And not have to, people can work from home. Period. Right? You don't need to have an office. Your office is at home. Yep. And you have a central office that maybe people, you have the command, the structure of the company, and maybe HR works out of there. And even that, I mean, one of my good friends, well, it's a friend of ours, John.
Yeah.
He's the HR director for, his company. Well, he is now. He got promoted. So HR director, but his people all work from home. Mm-hmm. So they're doing their job from home. So a fundamental change, but for some that's a bright spot, but for other things it's not, right?
Right.
So in turn,
do you have any personal bright spots
for me forward? is that I realized how good it is to be in the profession that I'm in. Number one, because I kind of will probably never not have a job.
Right.
If anything, my job has become more effective.
Right.
Because I'm actually helping people with mental health, and there's a lot of that. Things have gotten worse, but it's better for me in that aspect. But it also, my clients have gone up because, and we're able to really help people that really need help versus people that just kind of were like, meh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So that we're just kind of like gaming the system. And I don't like to say that, but there are people that do. It's like they go get coaching. They go get coaching. They go get stuff and therapy because they can, not because they necessarily need to. Either way. So that's a bright spot for me and my pocketbook, frankly. Realizing that some of my other business, well, this is one of the reasons we started back up the podcast, is we realized that we can make a real impact with the words coming out of our mouths.
Sure.
And our philosophies and things like that, and people will listen. I got a comment from a friend the other day. It's someone that my wife went to college with. It's her husband. Been listening. Okay. And the comment was, it's like I'm sitting down having a conversation with them. And that to me that's the point of what we're doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that's a bright spot. The fact that we decided to jump back on this bandwagon and do this and add value, whether you think we're adding value or not, again, it's your opinion. I love y'all. But
it's good. It's good for us to unload once a week on each other.
Absolutely. And this is one of those rare weeks. We actually didn't talk during the week this week. I think we texted a few times, but never. Yeah. We never even had a conversation. So it's always good to. Usually we talk at least once a week.
Yeah. Right.
So, but this week
before the recording.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah. For me, I would say one of the brights. There's been many, but one of the bright spots in 2020 is. Because everything closed down, and we had to really get creative about what could we go do. And 2020, I ended up picking up hiking, and I've never, for some reason, never really did any kind of hiking in the past. And I live in New England, in New Hampshire. I have no idea. I mean,
you have access to the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah. I mean, people literally travel thousands of miles to come up here to hike, and it's right in my backyard, literally. So. I picked up and spent a lot of money on gear, but I mean now that I have the gear, I went out and did a lot of hiking and ended up going on my first hike with my daughter, who's 18 now, and went on my first
Jesus
hike
Christ,
with my
is she really 18 now?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Went on a hike with my son, who was 25, and it was like, and I mean, on one hand, I'm like, God, yeah, like I can't believe I waited this long to
remember when
go do something like this.
High school.
I know. So I found that that activity incredibly. It's challenging, but I enjoyed it a lot, and that's definitely something I'm going to carry into 2021 for sure.
Yeah, that is cool. And we had actually planned to do a section hike of that app.
Yeah, somebody backed out.
Somebody had to back out.
I won't mention any names.
Well, somebody hurt themselves like a dipshit. What an ass.
Well, 2021.
Yeah, 2021. We gotta get at least one section done. So,
dude, we got to plan it. So maybe we can invite some listeners too.
Absolutely.
To come along. Number 2, what is something you are looking forward to leaving behind? What do you need to do to gain closure? That's interesting.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know.
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, something that I'm looking forward to leaving behind. I think for me, that is a lot of the petty stuff that kind of picked on me in the past, things that used to grate on me. Like, I don't know, 2020 kind of gave me a lot of new perspective, I guess. And I think a lot of things that I used to find annoying, not that they're not still annoying, but I don't let them get to me as bad anymore.
Yeah.
They're just like, yeah, whatever. There's bigger, badder things out there in the world to worry about than these little petty things. So I think that's something, just a change in perspective on human behavior, and there's just a lot of little things, whether it be at work or in our personal lives, that before 2020 used to be kind of a big thing, but now it doesn't seem to be as big anymore. And I think that's, for me, I guess that brings some level of closure, because it's about effort, right? The effort that you spend on things that don't matter could be spent on things that do, right? And that can help bring some sense of closure.
Yeah. I'm looking to leave behind this presidential
Amen. Yes.
cycle. Because we're always in some form of cycle for national elections, but
Yeah.
wow, freaking, and the scary part is it's not even going to be over at the new year.
Right.
Things are going to still be contested. They just are. Whether you agree with it or not, that's what's going to happen. So it's going to get drug in there a little bit, but at some point it has to end, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I seek leaving that whole divisive, crazy thing behind, and I look forward to people using some critical thinking when looking at these things next time, please.
Right.
And not be so sheeple-ish. Seriously.
Sheeple-ish.
Yeah, but because it's the tribalism has gotten out of hand, and people just really, and we can call them what they are. There's a lot of low information voting going on, and people are
Right.
just going in there and mashing, whether it's they're mashing a blue button or they're mashing a red button. And I urge people to really look at the candidates. All politics are local. This is a concept that I have to reiterate over and over and over again. All politics are local. And if you don't know who your local leaders are, shame on you.
Right.
And people are like, oh, I don't want to take the time. And I don't know what to do then with the because this is representative republic. This is the way it works.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again.
So question 3 of reflecting back on 2020 is, who helped you along the way? How might you thank or acknowledge them?
Maybe you did get sick, and you had a team of, doctors and nurses that helped you get back to health. That would be kind of cool. I kind of, I think that we all should thank the frontline healthcare workers, seriously.
Yeah. Right.
And kind of a slap in the face with Time Magazine making Joe Biden and Kamala Harris the person of the year. Like, they didn't even do anything.
Right.
Seriously. It should have been if you're gonna take away person of the year and make it people of the year, because that's what they did, maybe it should be frontline workers. So I
agree.
Helped you along the way? Absolutely. I don't know. I have to do some self-reflection on that, and I will. I'm actually going to take this list and do that. But my wife, of course, my children, a couple people that I work with, business partners, things like that.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. Now we get into 3 questions that we want to ask ourselves for looking forward into 2021. The first one is learning goal. What did you want to learn about or get better at doing in next year?
So for me, I'll start. So for me, I'm still on this 75 hard journey.
Yeah.
So I'm into, I did take a break from 75 hard to phase 1. I'm basically maintaining a lot of this stuff, but this is going to change. It's good because it's going to help me grow even more and learn more about myself and how I deal with others, because there's just added challenges to the phases 1 and 2, right?
Yep.
And then 3. So this journey continues for me on, a lot of self-reflection, lots of physical time, embracing the suck,
Right.
and moving forward and getting stronger, both physically and mentally, and learning about myself, as I get older, things change. So,
Right.
yeah. And I urge everyone else to check that out. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go check out the 75 Hard program.
Hell yeah.
Amazing, totally free. I mean, it's blood, sweat, and tears, so it's not free. But it'll teach you a lot about who you are and what you can and can't do. And yeah, pretty awesome. What about you?
So for me, for learning goal, what do I want to learn about or get better at doing? Well, one of the things that I'm learning about myself is the more I work from home, my routine has changed, right? So I used to listen to a lot more audiobooks, a lot more podcasts, because I would do those things during my commute to and from work. And without having that commute to and from work right now, I'm not doing those same things. So I also mentioned the other day to my wife that, man, I just feel like I'm just completely out of shape because I'm not getting as much exercise as I was before. When I was getting ready and going to work and walking up and down the stairs, and I do a lot more physical activity when I'm actually at work than if I'm just sitting at home at my desk. So I think going into 2021, I know that I'm going to be working from home at least through the end of January, if not, maybe even into Q1, later Q1. So I got to find ways to, find some of that time back, whether it's get up a little bit early and I've got a treadmill, maybe I could walk on that. Different things like that I think I'm going to experiment with, but I want to get better at doing that. Number 2, what relationships do you want to cultivate in 2021?
For me, it's to find and cultivate good relationships with like-hearted people that have a different mindset. Because I want to learn from them about the way that they think and how their decision-making works. But at the end of the day, we're the same in that we care about the same things. Meaning, right. And this is what I mean by like-hearted. I don't want to hang out with like-minded people because it's an echo chamber.
Like
it's an echo chamber.
Right.
And I'm pretty good at this anyway, finding people to talk to that have opposing views and then having civil discourse with them. But I want to cultivate that so there's even, because it's still kind of an arm's length relationship. Does that make sense?
Right.
So
sure.
I would like to invite them into my home. Let's have a meal. Let's, you know what I mean? Like, let's do real work here and help make each other better.
Right.
Because I want to understand why, and I'll just say it. I want to understand how the ultra liberal people, how they got to where they're at and how they think. Mm-hmm. I want to understand that. Because I don't. I just don't. I don't see how you can think that way.
And that's the thing is they can't see.
No, exactly. So, but if
right?
there's people, I have candidates here. You know what I'm saying? That I try to talk to on a regular basis, and I reach out to them and I ask them questions, and I want them to do the same with me, right? And I've got a few that we do now, to show that that you can have different thoughts, and that might be divisive, but we agree on like 90% of things. Literally,
right?
This is the like-heartedness. We agree that people, should have the opportunities to live a good life. We agree that people should get a helping hand if they have fallen hard times. Right? We agree that we don't want people to die for this, that, or the other. We don't want people to have to go to war for nothing, right? So we literally agree on 80 to 90% of everything, but we allow this 10 10% to totally divide us in a way that we would literally, people would cut each other's throats.
Right.
It's beyond my capability. So that's where I see a huge growth opportunity for everybody. But I'm going to actually execute on it.
There you go.
So
talk is cheap.
Yeah. Those are the relationships that I want to cultivate, not cultivate relationships with like-minded people, because I have enough of those.
I agree, man. Well, for me, one of the things that I'm not proud to say this, but I don't have a really good or deep relationship with really any member of my family. My mom, my dad, my sister, my two brothers.
A lot of baggage there.
Well, it's weird. That's the strange thing about my family is none of us really ever really talk to each other. We just don't. We don't call each other on the phone. We don't, send each other emails. And it's not that we are angry or hate each other or dislike each other. It's just that we're not really big communicators. And it's unfortunate. And it's always funny because no matter who I talk to, no matter what member or family, they're always like, man, you need to call me more. We never get to talk. You need to call me more. And my response is, well, last time I checked, the phone goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't call me either.
Two-way street.
What I mean? So, it's been like that for years. So what I decided to do is, we actually started it last month, is I scheduled a family Google Meet, and I put it on the calendar and invited all the members of my family. And it's the first Friday of every month, and it's like 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because my mom and sister live in Montana, and one of my brothers lives in New York, and the other one lives in New Hampshire. And so we did our first one first Friday of last month, and basically everyone got on this Google Meet all at the same time, and it was the first time. It was like a family reunion, but it was done virtually, and it's the first time we all had a chance to see each other and talk to each other in years. It was amazing. And so I scheduled it going into 2021. I didn't put an end date on it. So basically the first Friday of every month, we've got a standing Google Meets meetup where we're going to log on for an hour and a half, whatever, and just talk to each other and share what we're working on, what we're doing, and just catching up and starting to rebuild or recultivate those relationships.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
It is. I mean, it's something so small. And my mom reached out to me in a text message afterwards, and she was just completely, in tears. And she's like, thank you so much for setting this up. I can't believe that we're actually doing this. And I'm glad that we're doing it now, but it's like, why wouldn't we have done this sooner?
It's that adage that, it's the post that I made the other day. Someday or what is it? One day we'll do this, right? Oh, we'll do this one day, or is it day one?
Right.
So it's just do it.
It's better to just do it, and regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 3, I like this one. My name for 2021 is, quote, "This is the year of blank." Fill in that blank with a quality or action to practice. And this one might take a little bit of self-reflection as well, but just as an example, you could say, my name for 2021 is, losing weight, or my name for 2021 is learner, or my name for 2021 is, bachelor's degree, or whatever, right? Whatever it is, whatever quality action or practice you want to do in 2021, name it. And I think it's important to kind of do this because you're associating that quality action or practice to you, and this is kind of very similar to the Chinese year of the dragon, the year of the dog, the year of the, right? So what do you want to fill in that blank for you? Your name for 2021 is blank.
I think for me, it's almost the same. It's growth.
Okay.
Yep. So growth and also taking advantage of hacks. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really working smarter instead of harder.
Yeah.
And that growth is involved in that too. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
For me, I think one thing that's really been kind of bothering me in 2021 is just how out of shape I am. And so I think 2021, I really want my name for 2021 is getting into shape or doing something to. And again, it's not about weight loss. It's not about
but it's
diet.
multifaceted too.
Yeah, it's just about feeling better. Like I know that when I'm eating right and I'm getting exercise, I just feel better. I feel clearer. I feel more energetic. Now I just feel like, I feel tired all the time. I just don't feel, I went out and, well, as you know, we got quite a bit of snow the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And I went out there and used the snowblower to blow the snow away. And like, oh my God, like I feel like I've been run over by a train.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I should not be this sore from just snow blowing.
Right.
But I am.
Oh my God.
And
it's
it
like
just
you're
shows
not
you
even
how,
doing the work. The snowblower's
yeah.
doing 90% of the work.
Exactly. So it says here that conduct this exercise with your team and invite them to share bright spots or apprehensions. Or appreciation, sorry. Do it yourself and post your name for the year on a sticky note on your monitor or bathroom mirror. Together, we can turn the page on 2020 and begin creating a healthy, productive, and joyful 2021. It's a pretty simple exercise, but I think it's if you're struggling to come up with if you're struggling to come up with the New Year's resolution, don't.
Because New Year's resolutions never work. I think we did a whole show on this.
Oh, yeah, we did.
They don't work anyway.
Right.
Yeah. The one that never works really usually is like if you go from nothing to anything, it's better.
Yeah.
Right?
0 to 1.
0 to 1. So you really just got to focus on doing that with one thing. And saying, oh, I'm going to be healthier you can't.
Right.
Or going from 0 to 1 and saying, oh, I'm going to work out every day. It's not sustainable.
Right.
It just isn't. Unless, frankly, you also want to build some character in something else, man. I'm telling you, this shit worked for me. Doesn't mean it'll work for you, but 75 hard is no joke.
Yep.
It just gets it puts you in a different mind frame. And it really puts a focus on self-accountability. And too often we're looking for other people to make us accountable. And this all goes hand in hand with self-reflection. And if you look in the mirror and you know that you did the best that you can do for that day, then, and you achieve these 5 things, no matter what else happened, but you achieve these other 5 steps in your day, you can look in the mirror and feel accomplished. If you fail one of those steps, you fucking failed. And for me, but for me, that is like the breaker. That's the breaker that gets flipped on the thing for me, is that if I look in the mirror and I go, damn, you failed.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that the next day. I don't want to fail the next day,
Right.
So it gives you that self-accountability. I mean, some people don't have that inside them, though. Some people are just like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I'm moving on with life.
Right.
But if you actually give a shit, great program.
Yeah, man.
75 hard.
Very cool. So the next final segment is our flashback episode. Are you ready for this? Drum roll.
Which one did you choose?
Are you ready? Episode 28.
Oh, my God.
Understanding the business part of business, part 1.
Fuck.
Do you remember this
one?
one?
We had no idea what the fuck we were talking about.
This is the one that I shared with you. My failure at my job as a landscaper.
Yes. Fucking amazing. It is hysterical.
Let's listen to a segment of this episode. Ready?
Right, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how in the hell I didn't kill myself with this stump grinder machine, but I do. So I finished this stump grinding thing, And this guy's neighbor, across the street neighbor, he comes over and he goes, "Hey, yeah, I see you doing some work over." He goes, "Can you do you drop trees?" Now, if you've never been in New
Oh
England,
yeah, man. I know.
all
I
right,
grew
we're
up in
talking like
Connecticut, so I know.
we're talking 60-foot pine
Yeah.
trees, right? That are just huge, that will take out a house in one fell swoop. So this guy says, "Yeah, I got this pine tree in my front yard that I'd like to get, dropped." I'm like, "Yeah,
Now,
sure, no
needless to say,
problem."
people go to like college. People go to school to learn how to freaking drop trees.
Yeah, well, I didn't know
To
that.
arborist school.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So I'm like, I go home and I look it up, right? And so basically
Just go
the
watch
way
an
this
episode of Axeman. I'm good.
way this shit works is like there's like these spikes that you strap to your feet,
Right.
and you use these spikes
Like
to climb
that.
up the tree, and you tie off like a rope, like a pretty hefty rope.
Right, and then you chop
off
it off one piece at a time. And
well, no. So what you do is you use that as like a guide rope to kind of put some tension on. So when you're dropping the tree, it actually falls the right direction, right?
right.
Because this tree is literally right up against this guy's house. So if it falls the wrong way, it's going through his house.
Oh my God.
So yeah, you ready? Ready for this? Hold on, it gets really good. So, now, mind you, my company has insurance, but I don't know if it's enough to cover a whole freaking house. But I'm about to test the limits of my insurance company right here. So I tell my wife we got to go buy spikes to strap to our feet so we can climb the 6.
You ever watch the lumberjack shows with Donnie? Because that's what I'm about to do.
Yeah, and I got my brother with me too, right, Mister Evil Knievel fears nothing, right? He agrees to be the guy that strapped these spikes onto his feet and climb up this fucking 6-foot tree. So we go to the store, and it was like a specialty store because not just everybody
carries tree
buys
climbing
this shit.
spikes.
Yeah. So I should have known, right? The lights were going off, or should have been going off when I brought these things up to the counter, and the guy behind the counter looks at what I'm buying, and he looks at me, and he looks back down at the spikes, looks at me again, and he goes, "You sure you want these?" I'm like,
"Yep."
I'm like, "Yeah."
Absolutely.
He goes, he goes, "You know what they're for?" It's like, "Hell yeah, they're for climbing trees." He goes, "How many have you climbed?" And I'm like,
None.
None. And he goes, "All right, man. Good luck." So I buy these spikes. We drive out to the house, and here's my plan, right? I'm a pretty smart guy. I got a long rope.
I'm really good with my hands too.
Okay, there we go, man. So that's always a good one. That's one of our earlier shows, only 28 episodes in, and we didn't really know each other all that well back then. So it was an interesting show because I wanted to demonstrate to the listeners that sometimes you just got to get out. We're talking about failing, right? Sometimes you got to get out there and just be okay with failure, right? I posted something on LinkedIn the other day. And it was a meme. Let me get it. And it was pretty powerful. It spoke a lot to me. So it says, hold on. I always struggle to get to my profile on LinkedIn. All right, here we go. It says, wait one moment. Where is it? Hold on one second. Oh, here we go. It says, "Be brave enough to suck at something new."
Yeah, man.
Right, and that's the crux of that whole episode, and it was pretty funny episode.
Yep.
But
I love it.
Well, there we go, man. So stay tuned next week when we have episode 227 next week, and we're getting close to New Year's. So next week's episode is going to be just a couple days before New Year's. This is a couple days before Christmas. Then we got a couple days before New Year's, and then we are officially into 2021. And yeah, man, 2021 is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun because we're gonna. I think you and I have been kicking around some ideas of trying to maybe do some type of a virtual event, perhaps. Maybe even doing a meetup somewhere.
Of event. Right?
Yeah, something. We're gonna do something. We're just not sure what that's gonna be yet.
Right.
But we all get together and get the COVID vaccine together.
Yeah, man.
Shot in the ass all at the same time.
For sure. Oh, man.
All right.
Unreal.
Good talk, man.
All right. Hey, everyone. Just
Yeah.
remember, comfort is a slow death.
Thank you for listening to Change Your Point of View podcast. Pull up a chair and get a seat at the table and be a part of the conversation. Connect with us over on Facebook at our closed Facebook group called Change Your POV Squad. Let us know what you think of the show, good, bad, or indifferent. We'd love to hear your thoughts.